At this point, you should pause the video if you want to remind yourself what good note-taking looks like. Alright, so we're going to talk today about writing the equation of a line given a slope and 1 point. I would pause the video right now, write down this example, and write down these steps before we talk about them. So, we're writing the equation of the line. It says write the equation. I'm going to go ahead and circle this because that's telling me what I need to do to answer this question. I need to write the equation of a line. And I know previously that the equation of a line looks like y equals mx plus b. So the first thing I want to do is kind of brainstorm what I need and what I'm given. It says write the equation of the line containing a point 82 and a slope of negative 3/4. So first of all, what do I need to write an equation? I need, number one, the slope, which we know is represented by the lowercase m. And I also need the y-intercept, which is represented by the lowercase b. Alright, what am I given? It says a point x2, that's not my slope or my y-intercept, and a slope of negative 3/4. Oh, my slope is negative 3/4, so I'm going to write that in here. My m is equal to negative 3/4. Okay, so I have a point. Now, that's not my y-intercept, but what I can do is use this point and the slope I was given to solve for b in my equation. That's what our next step is, substitute in values. So I'm going to rewrite my equation. And I'm also going to take my point, I'm going to label it. Which one of these is x and which one is y? Well, I know this is x and I know this is y. So right now I have an m of negative 3, I have an x of 8, and I have a y of 2. All of those are letters, or variables, in my equation. So now I can substitute in those values. And I should always use parentheses when I'm substituting, so I'm going to put parentheses for the y equals parentheses for my m. Now to remind myself that m and x are being multiplied, I'm going to put the parentheses touching each other, plus b. Now I'm going to substitute my values. The value of y was 2. The value of m was negative 3/4. The value of x was 8. Now I'm looking at this, and this is something I probably need to simplify. On my right-hand side, on my left-hand side, it is simplified already. I just have a 2, so I'm going to rewrite 2. On my right-hand side, I have a negative 3/4 times 8, which I know is negative 6. And then I have my plus b, which I want to bring down. This should start to look like a one-step equation that you can solve. Ask yourself, what is happening to b and how do I undo that? Well, negative 6 is being added to b. And to undo plus negative 6, I'm going to add 6 to both sides. 2 plus 6 is 8. Negative 6 plus 6 is 0. This cancels. And I'm going to bring down my b. So 8 equals b. Now I can fill that in over here about what I need. I know that b, or the y-intercept, is equal to 8. That is what we mean by substitute values and solve for our variable b. Our second to last step is write the equation. So I'm going to use my slope m and my y-intercept b to write my equation. And I'm going to write y equals m, which was negative 3/4, x, and my y-intercept was 8. Notice when we rewrite our equation, we leave y and x as y and x because we want this to work for any point on the line. This equation should represent any point, ordered pair, that is on this line. Our last step is to check. And to check, I'm going to erase this work so it's a little bit clearer. We have this equation that we formulated. If this equation really works, we should be able to plug in this point, 8,2, into this equation, and it should work. So I know that 8 is x. I know that y is 2. So I'm going to write y equals negative 3/4 x plus 8. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to substitute 2 in for y, 2. I'm going to substitute 8 in for x, and I have plus 8. So let's see if we get the same number on both sides, if our check works. I'm going to bring down my 2 because it's already simplified. I know that negative 3/4 times 8 is negative 6. And I haven't done anything to my plus 8, so I'm going to bring that down. 2 is still the same. Negative 6 plus 8 is a positive 2. I got the same number on both sides. That means that I wrote my equation correctly and that it is correct. Alright, so let's do example number 2. I'm not going to rewrite the steps, but refer back to the steps as you go. I would pause the video right now and write down this example. So our first step was write what was given. We're asking to write an equation of the line. So I know that my equation is going to look like y equals mx plus b. And I know to solve that I need two things. Number one, m, or the slope. Number two, I need b, or the y-intercept. So I'm given a point, and like before, I know that this point is x, y. And I'm given a slope of negative 2. So I'm going to write here that I have my slope. It's negative 2. Our second step is to substitute in the values. So I'm going to rewrite my equation right here. Y equals mx plus b. I know that the slope m is negative 2. I know that x is 2. I know that y is 1. So I'm going to rewrite my equation using just parentheses first. Now, sometimes we have a tendency to just write really quickly, and it's a good idea to make sure that you substitute it in anything that you could. So I accidentally wrote the x, but I know what x is, so I'm just going to leave it as a parenthesis. So my y value is 1. My m value is negative 2. My x is a positive 2, and I don't know b, so I'm going to leave that how it is. I can simplify 1 and drop the parentheses. I'm just going to bring down the 1. I know that I see this multiplication here, so I'm going to simplify that. Negative 2 times 2 is a negative 4. And I haven't done anything with my b yet, so I'm going to bring it down. Again, we've created a one-step equation. How do you undo plus a negative 4? Well, you add 4 to both sides. 4 plus 1 is 5. Negative 4 plus 4 cancels out, that's 0. I'm going to bring down my b, and now I know that 5 equals b. My next step was write out my equation. So I know it wants to look like y equals mx plus b, so I'm going to write y equals m, which was negative 2x, and then b. b was, oops, I wrote b, it was 5. b was 5, so I'm going to put plus 5. And there's my equation. My last step is that I should check, so I'm going to write a check right here. So I'm going to take my equation. I have y was 1, let me put parentheses, equals negative 2, parentheses for whatever my x happens to be, 5. So let's check it using our point. My y value was 1. My x value was 2. I'm going to solve this now. I'm going to bring down my 1. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Bring down my plus 5. Bring down my 1 again. Negative 4 plus 5 is a positive 1. So my check worked, and I did my equation correctly. Alright, let's do a couple more examples. Here's example number 3. Now again, I'm going to look, okay, what am I given? Well, it wants me to write an equation of the line, and I know that's going to look like y equals mx plus b. I know that number 1, I need the slope, which is m. I know that number 2, I need the y-intercept, which is b. I'm given a point, which I know is x and y. I'm also given this time b, so this one's a little bit different. Instead of given m, I'm given b. Now our process is still going to be the same. I'm going to substitute in my values. So I'm given the equation y equals mx plus b. I'm going to write parentheses for any value I can substitute in. I can substitute in y. I don't have m, but I can substitute in x, and I can substitute in b. So parentheses equals, I don't know m, so I'm going to rewrite it, parentheses for x, plus b, I do know, so I'm going to write parentheses. My value of y was negative 1. My value for m I don't know. I did know my value for x, which was a positive 2. And I did know my value for b, which was 7. So now I'm going to simplify. I'm going to drop my parentheses and bring down the negative 1. I have here m times 2. Now we've talked about where the coefficient should go, and we've talked about how the coefficient should go in front of the m. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2m, so it's a little clearer for me. And I have a plus 7, and I'm going to bring down my plus 7. Alright, now this should look like a two-step equation. The first thing I should use is reverse GEMDOS and get rid of my addition and my subtraction first. So do I want to do a plus 7? I'm going to do minus 7. Negative 1 minus 7 is negative 8. I haven't done anything with my 2m yet, so I'm going to bring it down. And positive 7 minus 7 is 0, so that cancels. Now to get m by itself, I'm going to do the opposite of what's happening. In between 2 and m is multiplication. So to undo multiplication, I'm going to divide by 2. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. These 2's cancel out, and I'm left with m. So in this example, I actually solved for m instead of b, but the process was the same. We're looking for what is given. We're substituting what we were given into our equation and solving for the missing variable m. I'm going to rewrite my equation right now. Y equals m, which was negative 4, x plus b, which was 7. My last step should always be to check. So I'm going to rewrite what I just wrote. Y equals negative 4x plus 7. This is my check. I know that my point had a y value of negative 1. I know that my x was 2 plus 7. So let's see if this works. Negative 1, I'm going to bring down. Negative 4 times 2 is a negative 8 plus 7. Negative 1, I'm going to bring down. Negative 8 plus 7 is negative 1. My checked work. So this is the equation of my line. Let's do one more example, and this one's a little bit different than the others that we've seen. It says write the equation of a line. Alright, great, we're writing the equation, which I know is y equals mx plus b, containing a slope of 1/3. So I know that the two things I need are slope, or m, and I need the y-intercept, or b. It says containing a slope of 1/3. So I'm given the slope. I'm given 1/3. And an x-intercept of 6. Now, in the other examples, we were given a point. In this example, we aren't given a point, but we know something about x-intercepts, and we could make a point from that. If we have an x-intercept of 6, what that means is if this is your graph, and we had an x-intercept of 6, that means that our line would cross the x-axis at 6. And what do we know about a point that crosses at the x-axis? We know that the x value will be 6, but that the y value will be 0. We can use this point that we made to still solve for our b. So we know that this is x, we know that this is y. We can write out our equation. Y equals mx plus b. We know that we have a y value of 0, so I'm going to put a parentheses. We know we have an m of 1/3, so parentheses 1/3. We have an x of 6, and we're going to solve for b. And our y value is 0. So I'm going to bring down my 0 and drop my parentheses. I can simplify 1/3 times 6. 1/3 times 6 is a positive 2, and I still have plus b. I notice now this is a one-step equation. To get b by itself, I need to get rid of this plus 2. And to undo that, I'm going to minus 2. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. That cancels, and I'm going to bring down my b. I'm left with negative 2 equals b. Now I have what b is, negative 2. I can make my equation, y equals 1/3 x minus 2. Remember that instead of putting a plus 2, we're going to minus 2 because it is a negative. The last thing I should always do is that I should check that my equation works. So I'm going to rewrite the equation I found, y equals 1/3 x minus 2. My y value was 0. I had 1/3. My x value was 6 and a minus 2. I'm going to bring down my 0. 1/2 times 6 is 3. Three minus 2 is 1. Uh-oh. I must have done something wrong because I did not get 0 equals 0. Now, at this point, a really valuable thing for us to do is to stop and just check. Did we write everything down correctly? Sometimes when we're copying something over, we make a mistake. So I'm going to look back. Okay, my original equation was 1/3 x minus 2. Y equals 1/3 x minus 2. I substituted 0 in for y. I wrote down my slope 1/3. I wrote down my slope of 1/3 as 1/2. Here's where I made my mistake. I'm showing you this example because you should always check your work. It's really easy for us to make a simple mistake. It's just copying something down wrong. So I'm going to rewrite my slope. My slope was 1/3. I'm going to put my parentheses for x. My x was 6, and I'm going to minus 2. So now let's see. I brought down my 0. 1/3 times 6 is 2. I'm going to bring down my minus 2. And 2 minus 2 is 0. Now my check works. If I hadn't checked this, I made a mistake in my check, but if I hadn't checked it, I could have found that something was wrong. Always check your work. Alright, at this point, you should pause the video and write down these practice problems. Figure out what the answer is to each, and then when you're ready, press resume on your video and go to the answers. Here are the answers for practice 1, 2, and 3. Write down any questions that you might have so we can talk about it the next time you're in class. Any problems that you're unsure about, circle. Go back through your notes and the video and make sure that you've written down any key points, any examples, and any questions that you have.